What is capitalism? Basically, capitalism is merely voluntary exchanges. Voluntarily exchanging service or goods for other services or goods. That's it. Now, I've heard some people who are anti-capitalists merely throw in the word, it's the exploitation. And I have to stop them right there. No, capitalism is not about exploitation. It is about voluntarily exchanging product or service for another product or service. You can exchange it for currency, but that's merely a product. Currency, at least, used to be backed up by gold, the gold standard. Richard Nixon destroyed that for the U.S. currency. Now, the U.S. currency is backed up by basically the goodwill of the United States government. It's a fiat currency, F-I-A-T, meaning it's truly a paper currency. It has no value. But even there, you're trading a product, I guess you could say, the perception that the U.S. government is going to be around for other products. Currency is merely a medium. You can buy gold to buy gold, but for a long time, gold was mainly just a way of a medium, currency to do easy exchanges of products and services. You didn't have to do direct barter. Now, are there different types of capitalism? Yes. One we commonly hear today is called crony capitalism. Crony capitalism is using the state government to give you an edge over your competitors. It's voluntary to a very limited extent. You're using taxpayer money, taking money from other people, products from other people by use of force or the threat of force, that's what taxation is, and giving it to other people who didn't earn it. That's wrong. But crony capitalism can also be working laws, regulations, so that it favors you against other competitors. And this is where big corporations are crony capitalists. They don't like competition. They will try to get the rules and regulations so it makes it almost, if not completely impossible, for new competitors to rise up and challenge them. They will do it under the disguise of protecting the public, consumer protectionism. But the real reality is they're using it to keep out other competitors. Look in the United States auto industry. It really hasn't had a new competitor in decades. And that's because to make a car in the United States now requires you to jump through so many hurdles, to do so many hugely expensive things that is now virtually impossible to start up a new car company in the United States. There can be novelty cars, kit cars, small little production vehicles, and they're normally only able to operate by being essentially not classified as cars. They have 3 wheels and they classify as more as motorcycles or something like that. That's crony capitalism. Now, in another video, which will be the one I'll produce today, I'll explain what the black market is. And here's a link to that video. That's a different form of capitalism, which I will deal in that video. Now, People commonly who say that they're anti-capitalism commonly think that capitalists, business owners, exploit people. And they say, well, they try to employ them for as little as they can. And that's true. But they normally then don't talk about the other side of the coin, where the employee tries to get paid as much as they can. This is what generates the marketplace, the work marketplace. You have a supply of employees, you have demand from employers, and it's how that supply and demand works itself out determines whether employee wages go up or employee wages go down, unless you involve government. Like right now, government is the Democrats are trying to get the $15 hour wage in. And that's only going to hurt employees and employers. Simply because if you require businesses to pay $15 an hour, if what an employee does is not worth $15 an hour to that employer, in other words, they're making more off of that employee than that employee costs, then the employer is going to cut that job. You see this in restaurants. In fine restaurants, you rarely see busboys anymore, people who just clear the tables. Now that's being done by waitresses and waiters. You don't see self-service gas stations anymore, and nothing like what was in the 1950s, where there'd be a team of young men that would come out. One would pump your gas, one would wipe your windshield, one would check the air pressure in your tire, one would check the oil level of your engine. You only see those now in movies. In Back to the Future, Marty McFly is astounded when he sees a full-service gas station as it was in the 1950s. But that is, in a way, also form not crony capitalism, but a way of socialized capitalism. The government's going to determine how the marketplace operates, and it doesn't. It can only mess it on up. And every time you have an increase in the mandatory wages, you have a decrease in employees. In fact, the WikiLeaks released email exchanges of Hillary Clinton that are currently out. They even talk about a $15 an hour wage will cost jobs. But again, the Democratic Party is pro-big government. So they have to do what basically people who have very little understanding of how capitalism works want the world to operate. If you're not a capitalist, you live in a fantasy world. You live in a world where you're going to determine either supply or demand. Republicans are not immune to this. Wage price fixes that Nixon did and majorly distorted the marketplace. And a common swipe against capitalism is also like the 2008 recession. But that was caused by government, not by capitalism. It was largely the Democrats, but a lot of supporters within the Republican Party wanted to make housing affordable for pretty much everything, pretty much everyone. And so more and more pressure was put on the banking industry to make housing more affordable to everyone. Well, in the government's mind, that means giving more and more people loans. And banks weren't willing to do that because people were bad loan risks. But by the pressure of government, largely Democrats, but mainly Republicans, Freddie Mae and Freddie Mac started to influence the housing market. To the point where eventually you could buy a house with no money down and no credit check. That these people then later on defaulted on their loans, should have surprised no one. Although it did. You listen to, especially the Democrats, and they're just surprised of how many bad loans there are, not understanding that they are the cause of these bad loans by putting pressure on the banking industry to lower their requirements to giving out loans. Then what happened was banks bundled these bad loans into packages and sold them on the market. Bundled them in such a way that you could not pull out the bad loans. Well, what that made was toxic packages. Well, eventually the marketplace wised up to these toxic packages, and there was a drop in the market. The marketplace adjusted itself to reality. Unfortunately, government came in and tried to bail out the housing industry, etc., instead of just allowing the marketplace to correct itself, to correct it to reality. Bubbles almost always are generated by government. The Great Depression was caused because government came in and said, hey, you don't have to have 100% collateral to buy a stock. You only have to have 10% down to collect stock. Well, that caused a huge boom in the marketplace. Everyone was essentially buying 10 times as much stocks as they were before because they only had to put down 10% for each of those stocks. Then it only caused a minor hiccup, and some banks started calling in the loans. Well, they didn't have 90% of the collateral, the stockholders, in reserve because they had spent that 90% buying 10 times as much stocks. That caused them to try to sell their stocks to be able to pay back their loans, and it was just a chain reaction from that point on. Again, government was the problem. Socialized marketplace was a problem. But capitalism in by itself is just voluntary exchanges. That's it as its core. You can have a legal form of capitalism, and that's where you respect private property rights. You have a court of law to adjudicate disputes between property owners. But again, capitalism at its core is merely voluntary exchanges. Now I'll do a video about what is a black market. Now, if this is the first time you've been to my channel, please subscribe. I put out videos when news happens, and sometimes more than one video a day, such as today I will be. If you'd like to be alerted when new videos have been released, when subscribing to my channel, to the left of the subscribe button is a bell icon. Click on it, and you'll be able to get an email or text message notification when I put out a new episode. Also, when my mailing list gets up to 100 subscribers, I'm going to be releasing a weekly unlisted video where we reply to comments posted to last week's batch of public videos. If you'd like to receive those videos, a link to the mailing list sign-up form is in the description below. Please subscribe. Thank you. Bye. See you tomorrow.